Hello again, this is Alistair McGrath of Oxford University with the fourth of a series of articles exploring some aspects of Christianity for christianity.org.uk. Now, in the last article, I began to explore with you some of the reasons people give for finding Christianity credible and life-changing. And in this article, I want to focus on one of these, the desire to find meaning in life. That's become increasingly important, I think, as a result of the many uncertainties that we face at the moment as a result of wars, financial crises, and a growing realization that our planet seems to be developing climate patterns that threaten the existence of many forms of life, including, of course, that of human beings. So, what is this idea of meaning all about, and why does it matter so much to so many people? I've often been struck by some phrases I came across in the novelist Jeanette Winterson's personal memoirs, which are playfully entitled "Why Be Happy When You Could Be Normal?" And Winterson's words seem to me to go straight to the heart of what we really need as human beings if we are to live meaningfully and in hope. Here's what she has to say. See what you think. We cannot simply eat, sleep, hunt, and reproduce. We are meaning-seeking creatures. The Western world has done away with religion, but not with religious impulses. We seem to need some higher purpose, some point to our lives. Money and leisure, social progress are just not enough. Now, I think she's right. We need to live, not just to exist. And many of us feel that we live in an age in which we are simply overwhelmed with information and can't work out what really matters in life. Facts just aren't enough. Now, the American scientist Edward O. Wilson recently remarked that, and I quote, "We are drowning in information while starving for wisdom." And his point is that we may live in an age of information, but it's not an age of meaning. And a failure to find meaning in life can easily lead to despair. Now, here's how the psychologist Michael Steger explores this question of meaning. And he says it's to be understood as, and I quote, "the extent to which people comprehend, make sense of, or see significance in their lives, accompanied by the degree to which they perceive themselves to have a mission, purpose, or overarching aim in life." Now, I think that's a helpful point at which to begin our reflections. Psychology may not be able to tell us what this big picture might be, but it certainly shows us how important it is for us to lead a meaningful and fulfilled life. Now, psychologists have explored this fundamental human concern, and they've helped us, I think, to understand some of its core elements and the difference that it makes to life. We need to feel that we can make a difference to things, that we can take control of our lives. And we need a sense of identity and purpose if we are to cope with traumatic experiences in life and our own awareness of our mortality. So let's unpack this idea of meaning in a little more detail and look at how Christianity engages its several aspects. So, what kind of meaning are we talking about? Well, the social psychologist Roy Baumeister sets out a classic analysis of theories of the meaning of life. Now, Baumeister wasn't interested in telling us what the meaning of life is, but he was rather exploring four fundamental questions that had to be answered convincingly if a worldview was to count as a meaning of life. So let me tell you what these four are. Number one, the question of identity. Who am I? Number two, the question of value. Do I really matter? Number three, the question of purpose. Why am I here? And number four, the question of agency can I make a difference? Now, I want you to notice that these 4 questions are not empirical. They can't be answered by the natural sciences. We have to look somewhere else for answers. So let's look at one of these and reflect on how Christianity engages it. Do I matter? Do you matter? Now, the care of God for humanity is emphasized throughout the Old Testament. God is our shepherd, who accompanies us, supports us, and upholds us even in the valley of the shadow of death. And that's Psalm 23. I'm sure you know that very well. But the New Testament adds a new dimension to this by reaffirming the love of God for humanity, while linking this to the death of Christ as a tangible demonstration of God's commitment and compassion to us and for us. Now, Paul spoke of this divine commitment at several points. Here's one of them. While we were still sinners, Christ died for us. That's Romans chapter 5 and verse 8. And for Paul, the death of Christ is seen as a token of commitment, a demonstration of God's solidarity with humanity. So our value as individuals does not depend upon our achievement, something we do, but rather lies in the esteem and the affection in which we are held by God. God, if you like, is our secure base, to use a phrase introduced by the social psychologist John Bowlby. God offers us the unconditional love and acceptance that we need if we are to grow as people and to learn from our mistakes. And this kind of secure base helps us to cope with personal challenges and difficulties. The biblical image of God as a rock, for example, in the image of the person who builds the house on a rock rather than shifting sand in Matthew chapter 7, expresses these ideas of security and stability in a very accessible way. We possess value. We matter because we are valued and accepted and are enabled to cope with the challenges of life. Now, we could speak of the transvaluation of human life through being touched by God. That's a theme that we find throughout the poetic writings of George Herbert. And in one of his poems, Herbert likens the graceful touch of God as being like the fabled philosopher's stone of medieval alchemy. Just as the philosopher's stone transmutes base metal into gold, so God transforms the value of individuals through grace. Here's a verse from that very well-known poem. This is that famous stone that turneth all to gold, for that which God doth touch and own cannot for less be told. Now, Herbert's point here is that God bestows value on us, reassuring us that despite everything, we really matter and we have a place in a greater scheme of things. We are, as the medieval writer Julian of Norwich famously put it, enfolded in the love of Christ, which brings us a new security, identity, and value. Now, this idea of mattering to God, of being valued, is a very significant theme in Christian thought. And a leading theme in the New Testament is that Christ demonstrates and grounds God's love for humanity. And Paul speaks of this at several points in his letters. For example, I live by faith in the Son of God who loved me and gave himself for me. That's Galatians chapter 2, verse 20. Now, this is one of the reasons why so many people find Christianity deeply attractive. So let's try and flesh this out a little bit. And we're going to turn to C.S. Lewis's Chronicles of Narnia to do this, especially, of course, its best-known novel, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. Now, Lewis's Chronicles of Narnia resonates strongly with a deep human intuition that our own story is part of something grander, and that once we've grasped this grander vision, it allows us to see our own situation in a new and a more meaningful way. And Lewis picks up on the Christian idea that we are each individuals. We each have our own unique story, but that we can become part of some greater enterprise and in doing so make a difference. What we see in the Chronicles of Narnia is people, very often humble and lowly people, realizing that they can become part of something bigger. So you see, without losing our own distinct identities, we can enter into this greater story and gain value, meaning, and purpose within it. And in one sense, I think, faith is about allowing our own stories to become part of this larger story of God. Now, in the next article, I'm going to move on to explore the place of Jesus Christ in the Christian faith and tease out some of the themes that help us to understand his significance. Thank you so much for listening, and I look forward to speaking to you again very soon.